When was the last time you took an important test or exam? If you're an adult like me, 15 plus years out of school, you might think it's been a while. Exams are for kids. But what about professional exams, self-learning, even a job interview? The reality is, test taking is a part of life. Whether it's SATs, GREs, MCATs, or just the test of answering your boss's questions correctly or getting your brown belt in jiu-jitsu, it all comes down to how you perform under pressure. Do you rise to the occasion or do you crumble? Welcome to Change Made Easy. Changing your habits, routines, and behaviors is hard. We make it easy. I'm Paul, and I help high achievers who feel stuck bridge the gap between where they are and where they want to be. Traditional self-help doesn't work because it's too rigid, it's too generic, or it's too overwhelming. My approach is different. I simplify change by making it so easy it can't not happen. Using my easier framework, I help you create habits, routines, and behaviors that stick, so you can stop struggling and start thriving. It's that easy. Emma Bombeck said, "Worrying is like a rocking chair. It gives you something to do, but it never gets you anywhere." Anxiety is a feeling that can keep you stuck. The higher the stakes, the more potently you can feel these negative emotions. This can be harmful and stop you from performing at your best, even if you realistically know the answers to the test or you know how to handle the situation. And that's why my guest today, Craig Merriweather, created the Acing test program to help people deal with test-taking anxiety and get them to shine in their most troubling moments. Craig is a mindset coach and a clinical hypnotherapist who helps people eliminate negative emotions and trauma so they can reach their full potential. He's helped thousands get rid of what he calls test-taking anxiety, as well as fears and phobias, helping them change limiting beliefs and increasing their confidence. Although Craig's system is made for literal test-taking, as you'll hear in just a moment, its applications reach far out into any and all areas like job interviews, first dates, sales, and really anywhere else that you can get put on the spot, which is pretty much everywhere in life. In this episode, we discuss 3 steps to shift your physiology out of anxiety, and how to flood your body with the neurochemicals you need to ace every exam, and to ace life in general. We discuss the importance of bilateral stimulation and what that is, how you can use your breath to reduce anxiety, and why the concept of test-taking anxiety is important to understand even if you're long graduated from school like I am. Craig offers science-backed tools to take control of your mind and your body so you can show up for yourself when it matters most. It's that simple. Now, let's make it easy. What is test anxiety, and why is it something that the average person, me, the listener, needs to care about?
One of the big issues around test anxiety, one, of course, is just the utter discomfort of that fear, that anxiety, that stress, because it not only is a physical discomfort, which we can get into in a second, but it can literally hamper moving forward in your career, in your academic life, in life in general. Being nervous before a test, that's going to put you in the fight or flight stress response. There's a whole physiology to that, in that your brain starts creating the hormones of adrenaline and cortisol. You've probably heard those crazy stories of grandmothers lifting cars off of babies. That's adrenaline doing that. The soldier who's caught behind enemy lines runs for 3 days straight, no food, no water, no sleep. That's adrenaline doing that. It's now coursing through your bloodstream. The brain also creates molecules called neuropeptides. And these neuropeptides, hundreds of millions of these neuropeptides flooding into your bloodstream. And these molecules are looking for cells with the right receptors to give the message of emotion to your body. That's why you feel like that. You can differentiate between anxiety and depression and anger and worry and joy and happiness. That's because of these neuropeptides. These are literal molecules of anxiety, molecules of fear, molecules of anger moving through your body. 300% more blood's moving to the big muscles of your arms to fight. 300% more blood's moving to the big muscles of your legs to escape. Of course, that's draining blood away from your brain, which then causes all sorts of issues of going blank. If people have had that experience before, all of a sudden you just can't remember, even though you've studied and you know the material backwards and forwards. Now all of a sudden all the information seems to drain out of your head. The issue comes in those instances, even though you know the material, you could recite it backwards and forwards. But when getting into a stressful situation like being tested, and that maybe fear of failure, that fear of judgment, all of a sudden causes that fight or flight stress response to turn on. That could mean a lower SAT score for a high school student. There goes your $20,000 scholarship maybe, or your ability to get into the university of your choice, your top 5 schools. Maybe now, because of a lower SAT score or lower grades, GPA, you can't get into those schools that were on your top list. Maybe you want to be a doctor or a lawyer, and you have to take the MCATs or the LSATs, and maybe you don't make it because of test anxiety, even though you know the material. There's so many careers that require state licensing or some sort of certification, auto mechanics, plumbers, electricians, let alone, maybe a 65-year-old retiree who wants to start a second career as a real estate agent. They haven't taken a test in 50 years, but now they have to take the realtor's exam. It affects so many people in so many different age groups throughout life. The reason I really got into this, specifically this niche of test anxiety, is one, I struggle with it myself. I'm sure many people do, that just anxiousness before you take an exam or a test at school, pop quiz. And I watched my son struggle with it. And throughout my life, I've dealt with depression and anxiety. And so in trying to deal with that, I created a toolbox that helped myself with anxiety and depression.
Hey, real quick, we'll be back to the show in just a few seconds, but right now I just have to tell you about my free weekly newsletter. If you want to join the thousands of change seekers just like you who get a curated list each week of 5 educational, informative, and inspiring pieces of content to help you on your quest for change, then click the link in the notes that says free newsletter right now. You'll get signed up for free tips that will make your change journey easier, sent straight to your inbox every Friday. All you have to do is click free newsletter in whatever app you're listening on. Okay, now back to the show.
I started working with my son with his test anxiety. One of the reasons I became a hypnotherapist, a clinical hypnotherapist, working with people with anxiety and trauma and pain control and things like that, is because it helped me in my life. And I loved it so much that I decided to study and learn how to do this, and made that my second career a little bit later in life. And one of the first clients I ever had was a person who had studied to be an audiologist, and she was going to work with children with hearing impairments. What greater kind of career can you do than help children help them hear? And she was very intelligent, very smart, and she just could not pass the state licensing exam to become an audiologist. And the real reason, as we found out as I started working with her, is that when she was studying for her master's degree, like up in high school, up into getting her bachelor's, she was top of the class. But when she went to her master's degree, she switched schools, and now it was a school filled with top level people. And so she got really stressed and anxious about remaining on top. And that what you practice, you get better at. She got really great at being stressed and anxious around school. She decided she wanted to niche her career and become an audiologist. She studied, she spent thousands of dollars not only to get her master's degree, tens of thousands of dollars to become an audiologist, and hundreds of hours of training. She was great at what she does. She just couldn't pass the test. And this test is like $600. And that's every time you take it. It doesn't matter whether you pass or fail. And she has this career, her dream career, that's going to start at $80,000. And she just couldn't pass the test because of this anxiety and this stress. So it's not just the discomfort of the nervousness and the worry and the anxiety and the fear of walking into a test in high school. This can actually affect people's lives in an extraordinary way, because it's not just she can't start her career, her dream career, and earn a really great starting salary. It's embarrassing. It's humiliating to have to tell your parents, have to tell your friends that you didn't pass again. was like the third time she had taken the test and failed before someone suggested maybe trying hypnotherapy to deal with anxiety. So it's, again, not just the turning on of that stress response, maybe right before a test or even days before a test, and certainly during a test, and the physical discomfort of that, maybe even feeling nauseous or getting sweaty palms. But it's literally can affect life. And I don't mean to be super dramatic about it, but again, it could keep you from getting into the school that you want to get into. It could keep you from getting that scholarship. It can keep you from starting the career of your dreams or maintaining it. It can literally have life-altering implications. And what I found strange is that nobody really wants to talk about it. Nobody really wants to, I don't know, I don't want to say wants to do anything about it, because obviously it's a problem, but there doesn't seem to be very much information out there about specifically test anxiety. It all comes down to fear of failure, fear of judgment, and maybe being embarrassed that you didn't do well.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you bringing up that you kind of learned all this or got into this via your own struggles. Something that I've heard a lot in the past, and I say often, is that the best research is research. Usually we find solutions to problems that we have ourselves, and then we share that with the world, because it's like, oh, well, I figured this thing out, so let me help share it with other people. But I appreciate that you brought up, you said, as like a 65-year-old who's retiring and wants to become a real estate agent, or some of these other examples, because for me, it's easy to think, well, I'm not in school anymore, so I don't need to take any tests. But there are professional examinations, like you said, and lots of different certifying boards and things like that. But even beyond that, how have you seen these same principles expand into other areas of life beyond just test taking?
Right. Well, a great example would be you, Paul. You may be very comfortable. You seem very comfortable and an expert at doing these one-on-one interviews. But because of what you learn, because of your podcast, you may get an invitation to do a keynote speech at a conference, or in front of maybe a group of people doing a meeting. And it's one thing to talk one-on-one with somebody. It's like you're having a conversation over a cup of coffee. It's another thing to stand up on a podium with these lights on you. Maybe there's cameras, and there's 50, there's 100, there's 500 people. And that's an entirely different situation, even though it's kind of within your wheelhouse of what you do. And you may start getting a little nervous about that. And so it affects not only just a student, but also other areas of life. Again, there's so many aspects to life where we may get into the loop of fear of failure, or again, fear of judgment, and that apprehension of wanting to take the risk. And it may get to the point, not you specifically, but somebody may think, I don't want to do that, and miss the opportunity to grow their career, grow their business, and take it into an entirely different stratosphere. Because while having a podcast is great, you get on the speaking circuit.
Yeah.
And that could create another opportunity for you to grow your career and your business. But if that nervousness of just, I'm not getting on stage. I can't do that. I feel comfortable in my wheelhouse of talking one-on-one, but I'm not going to do that. And that could prevent you from, expanding your career.
Sure. So you mentioned a few times already fear of failure as something that holds us back. Now, if fear of failure is the thing that's keeping me from trying, from putting myself out there, is the solution simply better preparation? Because if I'm, to use the analogy of a test, if I'm afraid I'm going to fail the test, I study to make myself confident that I will be able to pass it. Is that what we need to get around this fear of failure, or is there something deeper?
There's certainly that aspect. One aspect of fear and fear of failure would be that you're not prepared. And so if there's a test coming up at the end of the week, it's coming up, but you're doing what you usually do, play video games, going out, hanging out with your friends, whatever you're doing, and not preparing, yeah, the morning of the test, you may feel the fear, oh my God, I didn't study, I don't know the material. So that's going to cause fear. So some aspect of this is that preparation, maybe even getting a tutor or getting a study group together and preparing over days and if not weeks can help alleviate that fear and that nervousness because you know the material. And you just go in and whether it's on a computer or you're still doing the written tests and you just ace the test because you know the material. But there's another aspect where because of maybe some incident in the past, your subconscious mind wants to keep you safe and protected. So it's always looking for ways to keep you insulated within safety and is always in kind of a survival mode. And if there has been an incident in the past that has created fear or has created anger or worry or anxiety, then it wants to protect you from that ever happening again. And maybe there was a time in the past, maybe back in the 5th grade or the 6th grade, when you weren't prepared for a test or you turned in that report and got an F because you did it the night before. That incident that was traumatic because maybe your parents were upset, you were upset, you got a bad grade in the class. That incident is now stored within your subconscious mind. Your subconscious mind doesn't want to experience it again. It wants to protect you from that. Your subconscious mind is for you. It's for your protection, for your safety. That doesn't necessarily mean it's for your, creating happiness and joy 24 hours a day. It wants to protect you from suffering. And by having this kind of filing cabinet of all these different incidents, circumstances, situations, events in your past that have caused trauma or terror or fear or anxiety or embarrassment or humiliation, as all this information comes through our 5 senses, what we see, hear, taste, touch, smell, it all gets filtered through that filing cabinet. If anything registers as one of those old files that has caused trauma or fear or anger, it'll send out the warning signals. Now, when somebody pulls a fire alarm in a building, the strobe lights go off, the sirens go off, wants to warn everybody in the building, there's danger, you need to get to safety now. We also have a warning system, but instead of lights and sirens, our brain warns us through feeling states. That's what the chemistry within our brain is creating, is a warning signal that there's danger in our external environment. The big problem is our minds can't tell the difference between what is real and what is imagined. And so while yes, a rattlesnake in a trailer, we've seen those crazy videos of people skiing down mountains and a bear's chasing them, and they don't, or those are real dangers. A natural disaster, tornado coming at you, that's real danger. A fight in a street or being attacked. But a math test on a Friday afternoon maybe is not so life-threatening, or maybe a job interview, not so life-threatening. But if there's been an incident in the past where that has caused trauma and maybe slight fear or anxiety or stress, it doesn't want to experience that again. So it's warning you, hey, we got this test coming up and you need to prepare for that in some way. But we don't know how to turn off that stress response. So it just kind of grows bigger and louder. And the more you practice something, the better you get at it. And so by changing your physiology in this way, again, moving 300% more blood than big muscles of your arms and your legs, that has to come from somewhere. Back in science class, energy cannot be created or destroyed. So that blood supply is coming from your digestive system, from your immune system. That's why people get sick when they're stressed. Their immune system, the power, the strength of their immune system is lowered when stressed because all that energy is going to protect you in the moment. But again, as I said just a minute ago, the mind can't tell the difference between what's real and what's imagined. And so a great example of this is when somebody's having a nightmare. Maybe you've had this experience, maybe your listeners have this experience. It could be the craziest, stupidest, most ridiculous dream. But it's really scary because a gigantic cheeseburger and his 2 hot dog friends are chasing down the street throwing rocks at you. It's ridiculous. Or it could be something super realistic, like a war veteran having a PTSD dream about the war, even though it was 30 years ago. You're safe and comfortable in bed. The security alarm's on, protecting your house. You couldn't be more comfortable. And yet in that moment of reliving that nightmare, or living that nightmare, your mind thinks you're actually in it, whether it's back in war, even though it was 30 years ago, or a cheeseburger's chasing you on the street. So again, it'll turn on that fight or flight. And so imagining that a test is coming up, your mind thinks, okay, here's some danger. We've experienced that in the past and it did not go well. Mm-hmm. We need to protect, we need to warn, we need to turn on the alarm system. And so it'll flood your body with that adrenaline, that cortisol, that feeling state of anxiety, warning you that there's danger, but there's not real danger. So a big part of this experience, and again, this can be moved to all sorts of situations. We're specifically talking about test anxiety.
Right.
But just life anxiety, again, whether it's a job interview or going for a promotion or something else, is learning how to turn off that stress response and anxiety. And what's extraordinary about the human body is you're in charge of that. You've been given everything you need to regulate your nervous system. It's great to have, you don't want to get rid of fear. Fear keeps you from walking down that dark alley at midnight because it's a shortcut home. Mm-hmm. Take the lighted streets home, even though it's going to take you an extra 10 minutes. Mm-hmm. It keeps you from looking too far over the edge of the Grand Canyon or petting the rattlesnake in the middle of the trail. Fear keeps you from doing that. So we want to keep fear. And we kind of keep that feeling state of stress and anxiousness. Stress will actually get the job done. But in terms of it going too far and getting to a place where you just want to kind of curl up in a ball and lay down in bed and hide, that's not a great way to live life. And so you have the ability to turn that off. And just most people don't tell you that. It's nicer to grab the money from medication and maybe years and years of therapy. And sometimes that's useful and helpful in certain situations. But in terms of just kind of daily life stress, you have the ability to regulate your nervous system, as I just said. And we can go over some processes on how to do that. Really simple, and they're not hard to do.
Great points. Exactly right. That's kind of what I wanted to dig into more here. Was I see your entire process around test anxiety, but I see all of these problems and therefore solutions as applicable to the broader issue of general anxiety and, as you said, fear of failure and the negative things that we deal with, which are all stem from a need for safety in general. So what are some of the tactics that you use, that you take people through when they start to notice? As you said, I'm gearing up for a test and I'm starting to feel those telltale signs in my body, or again, not a test, a talk, a conversation with a boss or an employee or a customer. It's all the same, whatever we're trying to do. I'm getting ready to take X, Y, and Z action, but I feel that fear response charging up in my body, and I know that I need to take back control. What are the actual tangible things that I can do to get myself going again?
Okay, I want to tell you and your listeners about a great little technique, a great little exercise you can do in just 5 minutes. And it'll literally recalibrate your nervous system, turn off the stress response, turn on the parasympathetic relaxation response part of your nervous system, as well as change the chemistry within your brain. And it's really simple. It's not hard to do. You've been given everything you need to turn off the stress response. And a big part of that is the breath. Now, I know it's cliched. I know it's somewhat obnoxious to tell somebody struggling with anxiety, especially before a test or job interview or an audition or something, to take a deeper breath. That's a really cliched thing to tell somebody and really somewhat obnoxious. But that's actually the thing you need to be doing. You need to get more oxygen into your system. And I'll go really quickly why, do a quick little biology refresher. But you need that oxygen into your system because as your blood supply is moving around your body, it's delivering the oxygen to the cells of your body, the muscles, the tissues of your organs. It's picking up carbon dioxide, the trash, the garbage, the toxins, moves through to your lungs. You exhale all that garbage and trash and carbon dioxide out. You breathe in all that oxygen, metabolizes into your bloodstream, and it delivers the oxygen to your body. that just does that over and over and over again. Well, if you've probably seen, and your listeners have probably seen, a picture or a drawing of a lung, maybe in a biology book or something, and the lungs sort of look like a pear cut from top to bottom. So it's narrow on the top and wider on the bottom. Well, about half a cup of blood is moving through the top third of your lungs every minute. And so half a cup of blood is being cleansed and cleaned and getting all that carbon dioxide being eliminated, breathing in oxygen into that half a cup of blood, which is now flowing through your body. Bottom of your lungs, and if you feel where your rib cage is, it's about 2 inches maybe from your hip bones. Your lungs are huge. Bottom of your lungs, 1 liter of blood. And you know what a liter? Liter is like one of those Gatorade bottles. That's a lot of blood. You are not oxygenating if you're not breathing well. And if you're stressed, you have a tendency to tighten your abdominal muscles, your stomach muscles. So the rib cage here is for your heart and your lungs, to protect those. The only thing protecting the vital organs of your abdomen are the abdominal muscles, so you'll tighten them, you'll squeeze them. So you can't get that big belly breath. So if you can breathe into your belly, and you then flatten your diaphragm and you get air into the bottom of your lungs, the brain takes 20% of the oxygen you breathe in. So are you breathing in half a cup per minute or 1 liter per minute? That alone will shoot all this oxygen by breathing deeply into your abdomen, which therefore into the bottom of your lungs, will shoot so much oxygen into your head for calm, rational thinking. That alone will help. The other issue is that by breathing deeply, you're cleansing more of that trash and garbage and carbon dioxide out of your system. Talked earlier about neuropeptides. So really quickly, let's say somebody gets that phone call, that text, that email at work, all this anger. Oh, now I got to stay late at work. I'm going to work all weekend because this guy messed up the report. And so all this anger flows in your head. Neuropeptides, creating that anger feeling into your bloodstream. The neuropeptides flowing around your bloodstream, looking for the cells with the right receptors to attach to give the feeling, the message, the signal of emotion to those cells. They get remetabolized back to the bloodstream, flow around to the lungs, you breathe them out. From creation, that phone call, that text, that email, creation of that anger to exhaling out those neuropeptides is 90 seconds. So within less than 2 minutes, you've gotten rid of all that anger. So that means if you're still angry an hour later, a day later, a week later, 30 years later, you have to keep recreating those neuropeptides over and over again. What you do most, you get better at. We know this from practicing piano or martial arts or learning a foreign language. What you practice the most, you get better at. So if you keep practicing being angry or anxious, you're literally going to wire that into your system. So the breath is a great way to cleanse all that stuff out of you. So that's one aspect of the breath. The other aspect of breathing deeply and calmly and rhythmically and smoothly is that we have the vagus nerve. This is that famous nerve everybody talks about recently. The vagus nerve has become very trendy in the last 5-6 years. We have 12 nerves that come out of our head. That's that thing when you touch a hot pot, a signal goes up the nerve from your hand up into your brain. It says you're touching a hot pot, let it go. You let it go, all within a millionth of a second. So we have 12 cranial nerves. The 10th cranial nerve is the vagus nerve. Vagus is Latin for wanderer because it attaches to the eyes, to the ears, to the muscles of your jaw, goes by your throat, by your vocal cords, attaches to your heart, to your lungs, and to your gut. The vagus nerve is a big part of the parasympathetic nervous system. So the two parts of the nervous system that apply to what we're talking about here, the sympathetic nervous system, the stress response, the fight or flight stress response, the parasympathetic relaxation response, when all the systems of your body have the appropriate amount of oxygen and blood supply and fuel and nutrients to operate at optimum levels. That's where you're supposed to be most of the time. The vagus nerve is a big part of the parasympathetic nervous system. It's attached to the lungs. By breathing deeply, smoothly, rhythmically, you stimulate the vagus nerve, therefore activate the parasympathetic nervous system. How simple is this? You've been given everything you need to regulate your nervous system, and the breath is a big part of that. Watch babies breathe. It's all belly breaths. That's a lot of growth between day 1 and 2 years old. They need a lot of oxygen into those tiny lungs, so it's all belly breaths. Then guess what? They start entering school, start getting a little nervous first day at school, and there's new kids, or maybe they switch schools. And so they start tightening their stomach muscles. So they start upper chest breathing until pretty much by high school, it's all upper chest breathing. And they're not getting the oxygen into their brains that they need for calm, rational thinking. So the first step in this 5-minute reboot exercise is slow, gentle, smooth breathing. The second aspect of this technique is bilateral stimulation. And again, really, I'm trying to make this as quick as possible, but bilateral stimulation is activating various parts of your brain using physical movement. Now, when somebody's anxious or stressed or feeling panic or fear, they're lighting up a part of the right side of the brain. Again, from science class, energy cannot be created or destroyed. So it just doesn't turn on, just doesn't light up. It needs blood supply, it needs oxygen, it needs fuel, it needs nutrients. So it pulls it from other parts of the brain. These other parts of the brain go dark and they go quiet. And it lights up this fear and this panic and this anxiety. So how do you undo that? Well, you light up these other parts of the brain. So some great ways to just automatically light up the brain is doing little physical exercise or movement. Whenever you move, whenever you do any sort of physical exercise, whether it's just bringing a glass of water to your mouth or walking down the street, you have to fire brain cells. Even thinking a thought or feeling an emotion, you fire brain cells. So I have my little squeezy ball in my hand, little stress ball, and all I'm going to do is just transfer the ball from left to right hand, right in front of me. This is lighting up parts of my brain. To force my arms to do this, I have to fire brain cells. I need blood supply, I need oxygen, I need fuel, I need nutrients. Where's that coming from? It's coming from all that anxiety and panic, so that diminishes. Left side of the brain is controlling the right side of the body, right side of the brain is controlling the left side of the body. So when I cross center point, which is about the sternum, I am firing on all these different parts of the brain. In order to do that, I got to diminish that panic and anxiety. If you've ever noticed somebody, maybe if you remember this back in school or you've seen this at a meeting or something, somebody's drumming on their knees and they're tapping their knees. That's bilateral stimulation. Left hand, right hand, left hand, even just the feeling on your knees of drumming on them. They're not hyper, they're not ADHD, they're nervous, they're worried, and they're self-soothing themselves by drumming on their knees. That's why walking feels so good. Left foot, right foot, left foot, right foot. It's bilateral stimulation. So what we're going to do to create this bilateral stimulation and operate various parts of our brain so we can pull away that energy from the panic and the anxiety is we're going to cross our arms and we're going to grip onto our shoulders. And so this alone is creating a bilateral stimulation, but there's a second aspect to this, and this is a hug. So by hugging yourself, and whether you want to just kind of give yourself a hug, you want to squeeze, you want to give yourself a bear hug, this feels good. This is nurturing, loving touch. And by feeling good, the only reason you're feeling good in your body is by changing your brain chemistry. And so by giving yourself this hug and breathing slowly and deeply, you are literally changing your brain chemistry. You're now creating the hormone GABA, which is diminishing and eliminating the adrenaline and cortisol in your brain. So you can now create oxytocin, serotonin, and dopamine just because of this hug. You're now literally changing your brain chemistry. You're now creating the neuropeptides, the feelings, those molecules that send the message of emotion. You're now creating the neuropeptides of joy, of happiness, of love, of deep connection. And again, whether you're giving yourself just a plain hug or a bear hug or the Havening technique, this is healing, nurturing, loving touch. You are literally changing your physiology and changing your brain chemistry. So we want to supersize this. Think of a person you want to give a hug to. And that could be somebody in your life today. It could be a good friend, even if they live across the country. It could be a pet, a dog, a cat, an animal. Maybe you're watching a documentary about elephants and you fell in love with a baby elephant. You can imagine this baby elephant. The mind cannot tell the difference between what is real and what's imagined. And so even if you're just pretending that you're hugging your good friend or a family member or a pet or an animal, or maybe there's somebody who's no longer with us, your grandmother, your grandfather, or somebody you've never met before, somebody who you admire, who you would love to give a hug to, because that's, again, going to create more chemistry that feels good. And so maybe we just do this for a minute or two. And if you're driving your car, maybe you wait and do this exercise later and replay it. So, and if you're watching the kids around the pool or if you're cooking with fire, wait to do this exercise. Well, we'll just do it for like a minute or so just to get the hang of it. But there's 3 points to this. There's the breathing, the deep breathing into your abdomen. There's a bilateral stimulation of the self-hug, which is going to change your brain chemistry. Then there's an aspect of visualizing somebody or a pet or an animal you want to hug. The mind can't tell the difference between what's real and what's imagined. The physiology of feeling this hug with the lighting up the visual part of the brain, visualizing somebody you want to give a hug to, will literally change your physiology. So just really quickly, let's do this together, and I'll talk everybody through it. And so again, if you're driving, if you're watching the kids around the pool, just maybe this exercise later and focus and concentrate on what you're needing to concentrate on. But if you have a moment, just for a minute or so, just with me, just closing your eyes if it's safe for you to do so, breathing in through your nose, and if you want, exhale out through your mouth like you're blowing out candles on a birthday cake. It's a great way to release that stress, that tension, that anxiety, the carbon dioxide, the gases, the toxins, the trash, the garbage out of your system into your belly. And I know, especially as we get older, we suck it in. We want our pants to fit. We want to look good at the high school reunion and at the wedding. You have to release those muscles of the abdomen, get that air into your abdomen so you can get into the bottom of your lungs, flood your brain with all that wonderful oxygen. Just breathing in 3 or 4 times. And when you're ready, just give yourself a hug. Cross your arms, grab your shoulders, grab your arms. Again, if you like, you just give yourself a hug, a bear hug. Or if you want to do the Havening technique and rub your hands up and down your arms from your wrists to your shoulders. Whatever feels best, whatever feels good. That's what we're shooting for. What feels best to you? Do that. You're literally changing your brain chemistry right now, creating oxytocin, serotonin, dopamine, GABA, neuropeptides of love, joy, and happiness. Hundreds of millions of these molecules flooding your body. And as you're giving yourself this hug, think of somebody you want to give a hug to. Whether it's somebody in your life right now, somebody who's maybe no longer with us, somebody you've never met before. Just light up that visual part of the brain and think of somebody you want to give a hug to and really feel the hug. And then you can it's great to do this for about 5-6 minutes. We won't do it that long just because of time constraints, but practice this as many times as you like. There's no negative side effect to doing this exercise multiple times a day. It's the 5-minute reboot exercise, not the 5-minute do it once and your life is rainbows and unicorns. Do it over and over again. Reset yourself, because the more you practice, the better you get at it. And a great time to do this is in the morning. And really quickly, a great aspect of the brain is this reticular activating system, which is kind of near the top of the brainstem. And this is the radar of your brain. And it will always look for danger. This is why even while you're deep asleep, you hear the baby crying at the end of the hallway, you wake up. You hear the back door opening at 2 a.m., you wake up. You smell smoke. You're too hot, you're too cold. You have to go to the bathroom, you wake up. This is your reticular activating system. You're driving down the road, you have the green light, but out of your peripheral vision, you see the red light or the car going towards the red light, so you slam on the brakes. Reticular activating system. The secondary task of your reticular activating system is to solve problems, find solutions, and create answers. This is that part of your mind, your brain. When you're thinking about buying a new car and you're thinking about buying a Toyota Prius, you see Toyota Priuses everywhere. That's because your reticular activating system is trying to find a solution to the new car, and you're thinking, oh, good gas mileage, the Toyota Prius. You see Toyota Prius, they're driving down the road, they're in every parking lot, they're at every car dealership. They were there yesterday and the day before and last year and 10 years ago. You didn't notice them. Your neighbor has one. You never even noticed that before. It's because you weren't focused on cars or Priuses. That's because we're being inundated with 11 million bits of information per second through our 5 senses, what we hear, see, taste, touch, smell. 11 million bits of information, how the light it is in the room. Is it too bright? Is it too dark? The temperature, things we don't notice. Maybe if you take a moment to listen, maybe you hear cars going by or an airplane overhead, or your neighbor has a leaf blower going, but you didn't notice that because you weren't focused on it. We're only cognizant of 50 bits of that 11 million. So we filter out a lot of stuff. This is that part of mind, part of your brain. When your day goes from bad to worse, if you've ever had that experience, it's because you're focusing on nothing but problems. And so what are you going to see? Nothing but problems. But in that 50 bits of conscious awareness of that 11 million, you're filtering out all the good stuff. So what if, and it's happening, it's just you don't notice it. So what if you started your day with something like this 5-minute reboot exercise and flooded your brain and your body with oxytocin, serotonin, and dopamine, the neuropeptides of joy, happiness, love? Wouldn't that focus your reticular activating system to find more things to be joyful about, to be happy about? And the more you practice something, the better you get at it. There's no bad side effects to feeling good, multiple times a day. So you do this in the morning, you're feeling good. Life throws a challenge at you, throws a curveball to your head. Reset yourself. Reboot your system. Do it again, do it again, do it again. 5 minutes, 6 minutes is all it takes. And the more you practice this, the more you'll literally change your physiology, literally change your brain chemistry, literally change how your brain is wired. It's just, you got to do it.
Super actionable insights, and breathing is one of those things that it's so easy to do that we think that we know how to do it, but the easiest things to do are also the easiest things not to do. And every guest that I have on here, I ask for actionable steps that they can take. And I've had hundreds of interviews, and far and away, the most common advice is breathing. So it is there's something special about it. And I love all of the tactics that you just gave, and that 5-minute reset is super powerful. Craig, what is the change that you want to see in the world?
I struggled a long time with depression and anxiety. I didn't know what to do about it. It started off in my teenage years because of some trauma and issues in my family life. And I struggled a lot in my 20s with it. And I didn't know what to do about it. This is before the internet really got going. And so your kind of options were medication or talk therapy. Or maybe occasionally an article you might read in a magazine. And so through all the years of struggling with this, and finally when my son was born in 2000, and I decided, okay, I gotta deal with this. I gotta end this, or at least learn how I can take control of my nervous system and deal with this. Because I didn't want him mirroring me or me teaching him through just being around me how to be depressed and anxious himself. And so I learned that you do have control. Yes, there are issues where finding professional help, again, whether it's talk therapy or seeing something like therapeutic hypnotherapist or a cognitive behavioral therapist, a counselor of some sort, it's super important to do. But there are also things to do within your own self-care to manage that. If I could just let everybody on the world know that you have the ability to take control of your nervous system. You don't have to feel like that. Yeah, it's going to come up. It's just life. And there are challenges in life. But if you can learn how to create a more resourceful, resilient way of meeting those challenges, and if everybody could learn that just by taking a few minutes here and there during your day, you can settle yourself, you can center yourself, you can ground yourself, and you can make life more resilient and more resourceful and bring a little more joy and happiness into your life by understanding that you can take control. You don't have, while it is important to seek help when you need it, there's a lot you can do yourself, and not just breathing in this 5-minute little reset reboot exercise I just showed everybody. Exercise in and of itself has been shown to not just help with chronic depression, but cure chronic depression, as well as medication, exercise. And I'm not saying you have to go to a gym and lift weights for 2 hours, but just walking around outside in the sunshine can do wonders for your health and your mental health and your emotional health, as well as your physical health. Just walking is extraordinary. Find something you enjoy doing. You don't have to go and pump weights all day long. Find something you enjoy, whether it's dance or walking or riding your bike or rock climbing at a rock climbing gym, whatever it is. Playing tennis, pickleball, whatever it is. Find something to do to move your body. And that alone will help in so many ways. And so if you can shed that outer layer of stress and tension, anxiety and depression, and then maybe, yeah, there's some issues, deep-rooted issues that need attention with a counselor or a therapist, whether it's talk therapist or hypnotherapist or whatever it may be, that need to be addressed. But then now you can address the deep issues and, my God, live life with a more joyful, happy outlook, with more resiliency or resourcefulness. So like you were just saying a minute ago, Paul, the breath is a big part of it. Exercise is a big part of it. Of course, nutrition is a big part of it. Watching how you feel your body. And again, I know we're going really late, but it was always extraordinary to me. I was in Scouts with my son, and one of the adults would always brag about how he didn't eat vegetables. And it's always fascinated me because he was such a car guy. And it wouldn't be like he wouldn't change the oil in his car. Of course he wouldn't, because he wants to maintain and take care of his car, but he wouldn't maintain his body and take care of his body. And if you can maintain and take care of your body by eating well and drinking lots of water and all the things that to fuel your body, make you feel good, you have control over all of that. And so if, again, this is a long answer to your probably a short question you just asked, but what I want to see change the world, how I want to, if I could just let a handful of people know that you have the ability to take control of your nervous system. And by doing some simple, little easy self-care techniques, whether it's that 5-minute reboot or just breathing exercises or finding something you love to do to move your body, whether it's dance or yoga or bike riding or rock climbing gym or whatever it is. If you can do that, you'll see extraordinary results in a short amount of time.
If you're really passionate about making this change stick, then I just have to remind you about my free weekly newsletter. Don't miss out on joining the thousands of change seekers just like you who get a curated list each week of 5 educational, informative, and inspiring pieces of content that will help you on your quest for change. Go to the notes of whatever app you're listening on and click the link that says free newsletter now. And you'll be signed up to get free tips sent straight to your inbox every Friday that will help make your change journey easier. All you have to do is click free newsletter right now. Go to that link, and I'll see you back here every Tuesday and Thursday for new episodes of Change Made Easy.